So we finally got a trade. It took long enough, but we finally get a draft trade, and it happens to be one of the teams is my favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, trading with the 49ers. This is a very interesting one, I think, because, they trade back, I believe, the 117th overall pick, just to move up that one spot. Granted, last time a team traded up one spot with the 49ers, it did not go too well for them. That was obviously the Mitchell Trubisky decision. But this one is no Mitchell Trubisky decision. Wirfs was the last of those 4 tackles that I kept talking about on the board. He's a really good player. I really liked all 4 of these tackles. And so I think it makes a ton of sense to go out and say, you know what, we are going to try to get a really good tackle, someone who can play both left tackle and right tackle. So, he definitely has that going for him. And I think that matters because right now, Tampa Bay, they have a left tackle in Donovan Smith, who's fine. He's not great. But, maybe if they go out and add another tackle, he can go to left. But if they decide not to do that, he can still play right tackle and play very well. I think Tampa Bay said, you know what, we need to make a trade here. We need to get our guy. I don't think San Francisco was going to draft a tackle, but maybe some other team does. I think it just makes sense. Let's guarantee we get a tackle here. There was a little bit of a thought of maybe get Jerry Jeudy because he was my favorite receiver in the draft, but I think this is the right call. I think going after a tackle, it just makes sense. And from the San Francisco 49ers perspective, it makes sense too. Go out, get an extra draft pick for somebody who isn't even going to be someone on your board. You're not getting Wirfs, so sure, go ahead. So it totally makes sense from their perspective. And now for Brady, it really does seem like the band has gotten finally together, to have an offensive line full of players that I think are pretty good. Right guard, left tackle, not spectacular, but good enough. I think Wirfs, his run blocking could really help Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay has definitely struggled in run blocking in the past. So I think that going out and getting a very good run blocker, I think that could help them quite a bit. And I also think that, listen, it's a lot easier to get a number 3 wide receiver in the second round than it is to get a starting tackle in the second round. So it just makes sense. Get your tackle now. They gave up a little bit of draft capital, but nothing crazy. So I definitely like this pick. I think it makes a ton of sense from Tampa Bay's perspective. And so let's just get into Wirfs now. And I'm going to get into the film study and talk about what it is that I like about him so much. We'll start things off with this play. What's going to happen is that you're going to see that a guard is going to start off blocking that Wisconsin player right over there, but Wirfs is also going to come over and he's going to finish off that block. So this isn't that necessarily a huge degree of difficulty type of play, but I just want you to watch and how much he dominates and is able to completely knock down a player who was admittedly surprised, but still, I thought that was a fun way to just sort of show he can finish off double teams pretty well. I'll show it a couple times because it is admittedly a bit difficult to see exactly what's going on, but still, I think a good play. Nothing spectacular. We'll get into some better plays a little bit later on, but it is important for a offensive lineman to be able to finish off double teams. He can do that kind of thing, so there you go. That's one small thing. We'll get into some more better plays, like take a look at this one, for example. So that's going to be his block right there. He is going to be going up one-on-one against a Wisconsin player, and so, relatively simple type idea. But what's interesting here is right after the ball is snapped, notice how he gets that left arm really just in perfect hand placement, exactly what you would want, where he's going to grab onto that shoulder pad. And at this point, he's too strong, where once he gets one of those shoulder pads, it's ball game at that point. You are not going to be able to get around Wirfs, and watch how, despite how much he tries, there's just no getting around him. Wirfs is able to make that block. That's just kind of what he can do. Again, there was a blitz there. Pressure still came quickly, so maybe didn't matter too much, but it kind of just, just because the play didn't work out doesn't mean it was Wirfs' fault. In fact, the opposite. It was not his fault. He did a great job on that play by, getting that hand placement. That's going to be so key for Wirfs once he, now that he's an NFL player, what he's going to do with getting the hand placement. That's going to be key. As long as he can continue to do that, he did a very good job in college. If he can continue to do that in the NFL, I do believe his strength will translate to the NFL. I think that sometimes you see rookie tackles have some trouble with their hands when, NFL-level pass rushers are obviously a lot better with their hands than college-level guys are. So sometimes it's hard to get that hand placement. So Wirfs, who had no problem getting hand placement in college, now moving on to the NFL, I could see some problems there, but, that's just That's just one random thought I had, but for the most part, I think that he will be fine. And once he gets the good hand placement, he definitely will be fine. So, yeah. I also really like this play. I thought this was a very fun play, a very interesting play. So, what's going to happen is that he's going up, again, one-on-one against that Wisconsin player right over there. But what you're going to notice his opponent do is not get too close. So, you kind of see how he steps back, and Wirfs just kind of lunges into him like that. This is because Wirfs' job was to block, that's a linebacker he's going up against. That's who he's trying to block. And for the linebacker, he wasn't necessarily rushing the passer if it was a passing play. He was only that close in case it was a run, which it is. But now, because he stayed farther back, you would think that for Wirfs, he's kind of not in a great position to block. And this is actually going to end up being a run near Wirfs. It's going to be just past the right tackle, which is Wirfs. And so you would think that this could be a bad situation. But even though he's lunging out, he's still able to push his assigned man far enough back to where he can't make a play, and it's able to be a huge run where it probably wouldn't have been a big run with like anybody else out there. So that's just, again, that's just strength right there. That's all that is being a big, strong guy and being able to make a very good move. That's what he was able to do on that play. And that's honestly really difficult to do. I think a lot of people don't totally realize just how difficult that is to do. I mean, listen, there's a reason why we here at Jackson Kruger Sports are always talking so much about technique and all of these little things, because usually if you don't have great technique, if you don't have your hands the way you want them, if you have to lunge at somebody, it's not going to go well. But you know what? It went very well there. And I think that, again, I like to show those kind of plays because I want to show plays where a player maybe doesn't necessarily have a perfect situation. I mean, listen, most first-round picks are going to do a pretty good job when things break their way, but I think sometimes what separates the good first-round picks from the great first-round picks are what they do when things don't necessarily go their way. There's many things to like about him, and that is just one of those things, is the fact that he can sometimes, even if the situation isn't necessarily a perfect situation, he can still thrive in that situation, which I think is definitely something to get excited about if he's on your team. I'll show one more play. This will do another good job of kind of explaining, his footwork and also just his awareness, where what's going to happen is that he is going to be going up to block a linebacker. They would have him do that every now and then. But again, what I like about this play is that he doesn't really have to get up there that quickly. The linebacker doesn't move up very quickly, so he's in a solid position. But watch how he kind of just tracks him. Just always make sure that he's further up towards the middle of the field than 54, his assigned man is. So that way, when he does end up making this block, he's just in a perfect position to make the block. And, I mean, with Wirfs, he's such a big, strong guy. He's not missing that block. He just isn't. I like this play for several reasons. It's kind of like, it almost feels like it's like a shark just, or maybe that's the bad example. It's like a panther. A panther stalking its prey, where you don't have to necessarily be fast. You just have to have the ability to be quick when you have to. And that's kind of what Wirfs is, where it's like he can just slowly track you, make sure that he gets in position, and once he's in position, you have no answer. There's nothing you can do at that point. He is just going to find a way to beat you, like, straight up. I think that there's obviously a lot of things he does well. I do think the strength portion is probably what people are going to notice the most. I mean, that's just, that's the biggest thing he does have going for him. But that's not to say that's the only thing he has going for him. Quite frankly, I mean, my mindset was there's going to be 4 teams that are going to feel very good after the first round of the draft, and it's going to be the 4 teams who get those big 4 tackles. Wirfs was one of them, so I definitely think that it's hard to really feel bad when you have Tristan Wirfs. It just is. But yeah, that's just my opinion. What do you think about him? Actually, here's the better question. Which one of those 4 tackles do you think is the best? Which one's going to have the best career? Which team do you think made the best decision in getting them? That's going to be the question I'm going to leave off to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I always enjoy making them, which is why I'm making so many tonight. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.